I'm just in the preparation stages here. As Zoom is preparing to go to YouTube, but I wanted to let you know that today we have an amazing speaker with us. And so I'm just in the preparation stages here. As Zoom is preparing to go to YouTube, but I wanted to let you know that today we have an amazing speaker with us. And so I'm just in the preparation stages here. As Zoom is preparing to go to YouTube, but I wanted to let you know that today we have an amazing speaker with us. There. I'm not sure if I can make that work. It might be background noise the whole time. And it seems to be slightly delayed. But Diane, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so today we have with us Diane Arnold. And Diane Arnold is a marriage and family therapist. And as you know, I have been working hard at creating programs and content that are to help people Monday to Friday. Just one second, I'm not going to getting, oh, I got it. Yeah. There, I've got it. I muted it. Yes. Can you hear me now, Diane?
Yeah, that would be an ADHD nightmare, wouldn't it?
It would be an ADHD nightmare. It's unbelievable. You have to learn all these tech things all the time, and it's usually a little bit beyond my capacity. Yes. Okay. Okay. So we have done another program with you, Diane, and on that program, we just discussed the importance of family, the importance of marriage. We did it with Danny Silk, and you can go back on the archives of Shiloh and watch that. For those of you who are Shiloh members, you can see it on Thinkific, and you can go and listen to that. And you know, and we were discussing in the midst of this pandemic, you know, the pressures that are coming on families. But this time I wanted to, and you can hear all about that. I'm not going to reiterate that, but this time I wanted to focus on how important family is, period. You know, not in a pandemic, not in, but just in regular basic life, and how important it is for every single person's calling. It's interesting to note that, you know, even in the prophetic tribe that I travel in, I have heard many people say, like one person told me that the Lord spoke to him in an audible voice and said, family is the key to revival. Yes. In our Transform Our World program that Wesley and I have just gone through 10 weeks of, you know, they have an entire session on the family, and they say how important family is for transformation. And in our personal life plan in the accelerator course, what we have to do is we actually have to make a family life plan as part of being a transformational person. So wow. Everywhere I'm turning in these last couple months, something that we've always known, something that I deeply believe in, something that I have experienced in my own family with my parents, and I have 5 brothers and a twin sister. Family's been super central to us. Like, we love family. Family's like the center, and something I've tried to instill as a value into my own children, which I love to see that they, you know, now in their 20s and 30s, they're each other's best friends still. They just hang out all the time. So it's a wonderful thing. But I wanted you to explain to us, you are a licensed marriage and family therapist. Yeah. You have given your life to building families, restoring families. And I'm sure that for me, I'm so impressed with counselors and therapists, because you have to hear everybody's problems day after day after day. Like, how do you function? That's just an aside, but you know, you hear about these family problems and you watch what goes on in families. And just tell me on a bigger level, what do you feel in society the significance of family is?
You know, I can tell you, you know, what I believe in, what the Bible says and all of that, you know, Stacey, but there are so many amazing, you know, philosophers and historians that have basically told us without, you know, well-functioning families, we won't have a constructive society. I mean, it's not paraphrased. Rollo May says, where there's no relatedness, the outcome will be violence. Take that for an answer.
Wow.
Yeah. And so those alarming statistics are what I think just copy Malachi, that unless we turn our hearts to our families, there will be curses. And I don't think it's something that's coming. I think we both know, or everyone who's watching knows, we're possibly living some of those already, but even that verse carries such a promise, that if we do things different, if our hearts are turned and children's hearts are turned, that there's an answer to that. I think family is the shock absorber for society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That if we made a lot of our decisions with the family in mind, if government made decisions, if policies were made, with the family in mind, that we would see a difference in society, a difference in how we relate, in difference in how we love, a difference, in probably the authority we carry.
So that's really interesting. So I as a therapist, like sometimes you hear these horrific family situations that you feel like that's almost irredeemable.
Right.
But I heard you say with a lot of hope there hey, Caleb, I'm sorry, that's super distracting to me. So I got my son over there. Speaking of family, I'm staying in his apartment.
Right.
I'm invading all of his space. But do you believe they're turnaroundable? Like like give us a for instance. Like, what do people walk through? When a family has broken down, what contributes to the breakdown of family? And then when the family is broken down and they come to you in a broken state, or to other therapists, even hypothetical examples, how can you see a turnaround? What does it take?
That's such a simple question. I want to back up to your first one. Okay, so what do I think I see? And there's many other counselors out there. You may not agree with theirs or disagree with this, but I feel like there's a lot of abandonment and rejection that happens for a variety of reasons. A lot of it breaks down in the family, breaks down, in the relationship with the mother, with the father, with the siblings, with their community. So I'm just, we know all of them, but I believe that wound goes to our identities. And I think that.
So what does abandonment, rejection look like? Like, those are terms that I'm sure that you are familiar with. We all kind of know it, but what does that look like in a family? Abandoned? Are they actually physically abandoned, left on an orphanage doorstep? Or what does that look like? Rejection, how does it take place? What are some, for instances, that cause rejection? Because what I want our listener to hear is how, if they're going to build a family, things that will be the most devastating. Don't do this because it causes the feelings of abandonment or rejection.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I love that for the listeners. And I want to say there's no perfect parent. So, as we go after talking a little about this, even as I read, I'm like, oh my gosh, I did that, or I did that wrong, or whatever. Most of research will tell you 50% of parenting is good. So most of us made it, with 50%. But we know what rejection looks like in society. Entire cultures think that they, are not accepted and loved and rejected. So that very same concept happens within a family, whether one of the kids is bullied, one of the kids is abused. Really great people will pay attention to a lot of things like work or, community, their job, rather than, investing time with their children and their activities and emotions. So, when you talk early on, that's what it looks like. But what it feels like, I think, is very individual. you
Mhm.
know, and what comes out of it is what we're seeing: anxiety, depression, shame, loneliness, suicide rates. What comes out of it is what we're seeing, in culture. It is a breakdown. And you named, adoption. Of course that could be it. Of course that could be it. Again, without sounding like a Pollyanna, those are healable, but they're not healable, you know, um, usually in a group. They're healable in relationship. Stacey, have you ever been uh, on a retreat with a couple of people,
Yes.
right? And you got to know them a little better?
Hmm.
Can you think of one? How did that feel?
Oh, yeah, that felt really good because you know them in a work context. But then when you go on a retreat, you kind of just see them passing by because your department's not their department. And then when you come together, you go, oh, wow, I really like that person. Or if you stop and talk to them, that you never really have, and go have a coffee in the middle of work, it's totally different when you know somebody than when you don't.
Right. And that's what we're talking about right there, where I'm figuring out how to lay out those scenarios. And that is amazing. You get to spend time with someone, you get to let your hair down a little and go, this is the real me. I'm authentic with you right now, and we're all a little nervous when that happens because they may not like me, right? There's the fears in that. But the truth is that in family, and I would say Jesus laid out that it would be awesome if this was our literal family. But, even he said in Matthew, who's my mother, who's my brothers, there's community that we want to call family that can heal, those. Now, sorry, that's on our end.
That's okay. Sounds like a big dog.
Yes, yes, my son has his dog here. There's community on anyone's end that can heal that level of, rejection.
Okay. I think that the attack on family is so intense. So I had on a Shiloh program, I had a guy named Michael Ho, and he's a business leader. And he was just talking about principles for success in business. It was awesome. But he is married to Martha, and Martha Ung, she formerly, and her father was Sopal Ung, and he grew up in the killing fields of Cambodia. And I
Wow.
don't know if you ever saw that old movie, The Killing Fields, but the Marxist agenda that went there, they targeted children and gave them guns and made them shoot their parents, like the horrific stuff that went on. And it was there intentionally to destroy the family connections. Also, in the cultural purges of China, they've done that. And it feels like what's going on with some of this anarchy and anarchist protests, even now that we're seeing, there's an intention to separate people from authority, people from the society, to actually make great divisions, wedges that can't be healed. And I think that when you want to destroy a society, it's destroyed always historically from within. Very. You
100%.
have wars that take over, but for the most part, the superpowers that are leading the world at one season begin to be destroyed from within. And it starts with the breakdown of the family unit. And it brings all these other issues alongside of it. So what would you say to that? Like, is it actually a phenomenon that if you can break down a family unit in a nation, in a city, in a society, in a neighborhood, that it creates anarchy? Or what, do they just find different structures, authoritarian, totalitarian structures, to replace what should be relational? What's your understanding?
I think is it de Tocqueville? Is that? He's the one who actually said exactly what you said. If America would ever be destroyed, it would be from within. And I think, people will find that connection and that relatedness. It might sound like an old song, but looking for love in all the wrong places. But, I'm going to look, that's where you will see, an increase in gang activity. You will see an increase where people, will look for connection wherever they will get it. When they won't get it in a healthy way, I will get it. It's most people won't just go away. And that when you see go away, that's the hopelessness, the despair, the depression rates. But most people will find connection. And if healthy connection is not available to them, they'll find it in other ways. And so
if there's trouble at home, the young person doesn't want to be at home, they go out in the neighborhood and they find another person, says, hey, offers them community of any kind. They will just start to attach to that because they can't attach at home. Is that how it works?
And sometimes, and like I said, there's probably parents watching this going, I've tried everything, and sometimes, it's not something that we can do. And I even want to speak to that for a second, if you could let me just rabbit trail. We have at our Access a healing center. And a lot of times when we have parents that are stuck, and we have a lot of parents that come in that's stuck with, their teenage children, their adult children, they're, walking in things that, their parents are not hugely happy with. And we have set up, places where people can come pray and speak the word and, proclaim over them. And the last 3 weeks in a row, we have seen miracles beyond miracles. Wow. 3 weeks ago, a pastor actually had a grandchild that hadn't spoken to him for 3 years. Wow. And they had proclaimed over the child and talked over the child, and they knew this child well. And one day we had this great big prayer session, and one day, again, we have, that's what we talked about. We do have strategies at our fingertips, the next day, this grandchild called.
So it wasn't the grandfather reaching out to the grandchild. It was something that happened in the spirit, that the grandchild then called the grandfather that he hadn't spoken to for 3 years.
Yeah. I think God's heart is really toward this restoration right now. But I believe what I just said, Stacey, is hard for us to get our heads around, but it's going to be a one-on-one movement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that seems hard, right? It seems slow. Right.
So it's not like going to happen in a mega church or a stadium or a big crowd. It's going to happen family by family, person by person. Is that what you're saying? The restoration? Because the
relatedness that people want, like I said, that's why I asked you that question. You ever been in that kind of an intimate? It doesn't happen, usually it doesn't happen in groups over 8 or 10.
Wow.
And that's just counseling numbers. They always tell 8 is your magic number, where you can actually get into a place and get to know someone a little better.
That's phenomenal that you even say that, because a lot of the prophetic words are about the renewal of house church movements that are going to start happening all across America. And the prophetic people are picking up that this is what the Lord is on and what he's doing. That doesn't mean you won't still gather in larger groups, right. But there is something on the Lord's heart that he keeps saying over and over again prophetically, that the house church movement is what he's breathing on. He's really breathing on that right now. And then you can still have your large gatherings maybe at the end of COVID, but really that's what's happening. And it's actually being forced upon us right now. And the strange thing is within Christianity, like the successful churches are the mega churches, the big meetings, and actually it never changes society. It rarely brings those large gatherings are amazing for the people that attend them. They give a boost to our faith. And I think that's why, like in the Old Testament, God said, like, throw a party 3 times a year, everybody gather all together. It's important to bring, the whole nation together. And those are awesome. And I know that the energy and excitement and power that's there is wonderful. But the real transformation happens in the small groups, happens in the one-on-one, happens in the heart, So tell us, how do we build attachment in a broken situation? Because I have people that are watching right now, okay, and they love God and they are passionate and they want to serve God, and but the thing that's holding them back is their relationship with their spouse, or their children are breaking their heart, and something like that. So how do you build it when everything's broken down and you're telling us there's hope? You're telling us that no matter how bad it is, not even speaking to each other for 3 years, there's actually hope. So what do you do to bring about those breakthroughs? And also, okay, so I'll ask you that question first.
Okay, so let me give you another story on that. So that day that pastor, released that word, and, we celebrated over that, there was a lady.
Released what word?
Released what had happened to their granddaughter. There was a lady in that group who said, listen, my young adult son, that's what you're talking about, was raised in the church and, really doesn't want anything to do with us and God right now. Can you pray with us over that? I think that's the circumstance you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be hard for me to tell this one without crying. And so the next week we're together, and we were just about ready to break up. And she said, can I tell you a story? And I said, yeah. So last week when we prayed, and I said, yeah. She said, I started to reach out to my son and not have any demands. We had talked about this unconditional love, and I knew the lifestyle he was in. I knew what he was doing, but I decided that it was more important for me to care and love and let him know, like you just said to me, that he had attachment, safe attachment somewhere, that he didn't have to look for it somewhere else. And she said, I gritted my teeth. I made the phone calls. I told him how wonderful he was, what I saw about his life, how special he was to us, and I would let it go. And she said, I did that about 5 days. And on day 6, he showed up.
Wow.
Showed up at the doorstep. And just said, I know you love me. My life's a mess. I'm not sure I'm going to get it turned around right now, but I need that relationship. I need someone to mentor me. I need someone to tell me what turns to take. And I may not always follow you, but I know you love me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And they've still got some walking to do, because this kid's in a really bad place. But, the right person is speaking into his life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because we followed a commandment that Jesus asked: unconditionally love. And it's not impossible to do from a stage, but it's hard. Yeah. That's why I said it. I explained, what I said to you about the group. It's so much easier when someone's right there and you're connecting and they're going, okay, I'm willing to look beyond that. It doesn't mean that I agree with it. It doesn't mean I accept it. It doesn't mean that it's going to fly long term, but I'm willing to say you matter more than that thing.
Wow. That's incredible. I come from a tremendous family. My mom and dad, I always knew, above all things, my mom and dad loved us, all of us. I always say, like, we all felt like the favorite child, at least I did. And, my mother and my dad weren't partial, And so, like, even this week, it was Canada Day here in Kelowna, in Canada. And And so we all went, my twin sister and her husband and Wesley and I and my mom and dad. We went. My sister has a boat at the marina here, so we went to the yacht club and had a bite to eat. And on our way home, we're driving past my son's place that he's rented with a few friends, and it's Canada Day, so it's a party day. So, and they're all out in the front yard, just all of his friends, and they got Canada things on, and they got flags and everything. And so Wesley pulls over and says, let's stop and say hi to Simeon. So we get out, and my mom and dad get out, and they're in their 80s, and they get out. We all go into this big crowd of all young people. And, they're, some of them are a little rowdier than others, and we're all out in the front yard there. And my mother, my 83-year-old mother, when we get back in the truck, we all greet everybody, and everybody comes over and says, hey, how are you doing? Everybody knows Wesley because he's been with the boys at all their rugby games. But when we're getting back in the truck, my mom goes, I just love that. I just love going to see all those young people, and even in their wild states, because this one guy has got him all these Canada Day tattoo things going on, And anyway, and they're taking wild pictures. And my mom says, I just love doing that because she has instilled in us this value for family. My dad and my mom have really instilled in that. And so to her, that was a highlight to be able to go to the grandson's Canada Day party. She just thought that was the greatest thing. And I think that even like you said, when you have differing points of views on issues, on political issues, on this, on that those are not the main things. The main thing is to keep relationship with your family. And there's a lot of things I disagree with my kids on, and they disagree with me on. It's like mutual. But we still love each other. We still engage, and we still work it all through. And I think that that's something really, really important to value. But how do you bring that back, that attachment? You said this thing about unconditional love. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of that other program we did. I think I alluded to it last time, of this guy that's led millions of people from the LGBTQ community to Jesus. But he said the same thing. He said it was just they needed to know they're loved. They don't feel loved, they feel rejected. And the deeper a person feels rejected, then the harder it is for them to attach and to come into healthy relationships. And so talk to us a little bit about that. How do you counsel people? What do you have? Do you have prayers you lead them in? Do you have just listen to them? Or like, how do you get people to the place of, okay, what's the main thing? How do you get them to that place when they've had a lot of breakdown and a lot of pain? How do you get them to reach out again?
So, attachment, before, because there's people who are listening that don't know, attachment is a style of how you relate to people. So it's literally a map you have in your brain. It's how safe I see relationships, and it exists very, very early on. And unlike a lot of other things in life, there's no cure for it. There's no shot. There's no
vaccines coming for that one.
No vaccines for it. The only thing that really works when that's insecure in you is other safe people. So one of the things that when counselors innately know is 50% of our healing in the counseling office is being there, existing, listening, letting someone know that they're valued and loved, and that, I can hear you, and I'm not going to sit judgment on you. And I know that sounds crazy. When I went to school and got that statistic, I was like, are you kidding me? All I have to do is show up,
and sit there.
Right. But think about that for us as, Christians, as the body of Christ. If 50% is you showing up and not immediately having judgment over something, you're actually helping someone heal. So that's a beginning. It's being, being in relationship. But without that relationship, we don't usually get the option to speak into the things that we see that might be holding them back.
Mm.
So you talk about your amazing family, and we have a pretty close family, and we disagree on some pretty basic things as well, but that didn't come naturally. We've got a place where you know people are pretty much allowed, and we've had to work at it. We've had to kind of like duke it out, like you're allowed to have thoughts on that. You're allowed to think differently than your parents,
Mm.
but your parents actually are allowed to say, hey, let's take a look at this, and how I do that in love it's a very different model than a lot of the authoritarian, you know,
So give us a, for instance, how would a person deal with something in love? So I'm just imagining that, all of us, like, even though my family is very connected and, but we got lots of issues too. So how do you actually agree to disagree, not lose the attachment, keep it, stay in the room. I always say, just stay in the room,
yeah, yep,
how,
yep.
how do you
And
do?
and that's beautiful. That's and who's really good at that? Millennials.
Yeah.
They're coffee people, and they love to talk it out and stay in the room and to have an argument and to walk away and not think somebody's wrong,
Mhm. Yeah.
unless it is wrong.
Mhm.
So, I'm always go with Jesus as the example on that with the woman at the well. Clearly not living the lifestyle that we want the woman to live, right? But, his conversation with her was, first, let's restore you, and then let's talk about what's not working for you.
Okay.
And that community and connection, I think we're forgetting has to happen first. There's a layer in there of us, I'm not even going to listen to you if I don't feel like you're in my boat, and I can trust you with this. And that's not just our children, or you, like in your instance, you're really good at it. You can probably help someone else's children, but so it's I look at this as a community as whole. Family to me doesn't just mean my three boys and their kids. It means, what are the people that God's put in my life that say, I am to be speaking into that. So in an answer to your question, one of those couples was struggling with something in their marriage relationship, and I know that I have validity in their life because I've given, what it takes to be part of who they are, and so I am able to say to them in those times, that seems like that's not working for you. It seems like we're in a place that you're stuck, or seems like that's not getting you where you want to go. That's, but I'm not running in and saying, you need to quit doing such and such because you're probably gonna, rot away if you do it. I'm actually coming at, like, is that not working? Is it working? Is it something that you're struggling with? Do you want to talk about that one? Being more inclusive always with the conversation is going to allow people to kind of let down a little wall.
Mhm. So let's say there's a family listening. They're having big communication problems. They don't know how to talk. They don't, it's icy, it's cold. They haven't talked for a while. They might even be in the same room, but they're not communicating.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, what should a person do? Let's say, what should a person do?
One of the things, I'm going to give this to Zach, Zach, my middle son. One of
Mhm.
the things that he did that kind of cracked a little of this code in our own house, and it may or may not work, is, we had a time together where we spoke life, value, identity into people. We went around the table and did that. And that the affirmation of knowing that you can speak that into my life allowed people to be able to come back and say, is there something you see? That's wonderful stuff. Is there something you see that could change me and make me better? It allows me to let down my wall. So I always say, when we have to give constructive criticism, and that's what it is, when we need to go to speak into something, I always make sure that you're letting people know that this isn't their whole identity that's a mess. There's a thing in their life that might be holding them back from being all of this, from being, their destiny, from being all the creative things and the person that they are. And most times when people can catch the vision with you and go, oh my gosh, they don't want to be held back. That's holding me back. I don't want to hold back. How does that work?
Mhm.
But when someone gets really stung by something, and then for me, it's easy to be able to say, listen, that looks like we're not going to be able to talk about that right now, but I still love you. You still matter to me, and I would love a chance if we could at another time to do that.
Mhm. Wow, that's good. And what I am kind of intrigued, because we pastored for many, many years, and we had a huge counseling department in our church
Oh,
back in the day. And so it was a value for all of our staff to go to counseling. So Wesley and I have gone to, different Restoring the Foundations for a week. We've gone to Mark Sanford for a week, Elijah House, different Love After Marriage. We've done different things, to do tune-ups and to do those things. But and a lot of those people in those counseling situations, they will go way back to your childhood and find the roots, etc.
yeah.
But what I'm hearing you say, and I understand the value in that. Well, what I'm hearing you say is something much more practical. Okay, where are you at today? You got this situation now. How do you walk towards improving it today? And what are the tools or the skill sets that help you create more relationship and attachment today, despite your terrible childhood or your trauma or whatever happened? So, is it necessary to fix everything from decades before to make a difference today? Or are they part and parcel of it? Or, is it just a different approach?
Yeah, no, and I've actually been to a lot of those things myself, and lots of sozos.
Mhm.
So, um, I think if there's something that God makes you aware of that you're stuck with, it's wherever you got to go, if it's generational or not generational, but there are things, Stacey, in our lives that we have to choose to change,
Every
you
day.
know, every day. And it's why the renewing of the mind was Romans 12:2 is a real thing and it's actually a real neurological thing that there's a trigger and a pathway in my brain that gets created that needs to get adjusted. And a lot of times, prayer can help with some of that. Like if it's something that, that I am dealing with spiritually, because I think the answer to your question is, am I dealing with it something spiritually or something emotionally? And
Mhm.
they can get like this, right? And so it's important to know that if I'm dealing with something that's, emotional, then I need to have an emotional answer. Relationships, an emotional answer.
Mhm.
Healing prayer is an emotional answer. Me giving you a book, that's a cognitive answer, So it really depends on, and I'm not trying to be confusing, but what you're in answer to your question is, what you're dealing with. So you asked me, how do we deal with, I feel like I'm rejected. I don't feel like I have, relationship. Then it's got to come from healthy relationship.
Hmm. So uh, but I'm just going to reflect a little bit.
Okay.
But even if we don't get everything fixed from our childhood and all of those things out,
I
there
don't
are
think we
things we can
will.
there are things we can do today that
Yeah.
actually build relationships. There are things that will work. I mean, and maybe we have to go get some of those roots dealt with at a different time, but today we can all start today without doing that. And those are the things I want to talk about, because I believe, like you said, a consistent practice of doing the right thing the right way today can do as much as sometimes going back to that root. It's a matter of choosing to do the right thing today in a relationship. So give me, what are the top three things that we need to do to build relationship with the people that we love, even
Well,
that have way different belief systems than us?
yeah. How, we're going to start with Jesus. We got to love, we got to accept, and we got to restore. That's easy for me. And I think we do those pretty well. As a body of Christ, I think they're time consuming, and we have to walk life with people. And that's why, I believe the family movement is, it it is coming back to, our attention as something that really, really matters, that our communities are really going to matter. And so those are all something I have to do, not something someone else has to do.
Good point. Okay, say that again. Say that again.
If I'm gonna love well, I gotta check that I'm loving well. If I'm truly being accepting and caring with people, I'm checking to see if I'm truly doing that. If I'm going to be a restorer of people, I'm checking to see that I'm set up to be a restorer of people. I can never make that decision or claim on someone else. It's about me, what I'm doing with me.
Mhm.
And I believe, that's the model that Jesus left for us, is to speak life, to speak hope, to speak, restoration, restitution into people. And easy for me to say, like I said, it's a counselor, it's my life profession, but I believe truly that's the movement that we're seeing right now, is that I think it's, if you haven't looked at these people, it's Richard and Linda Eyre, Eyre. If you don't look them up, they've been at it for 50 years, Harvard graduates, and they keep talking about the essence of family being important for society. And they say family exists to replace and replenish humanity. And its goal is for rearing children by teaching, training, and integrating them into broader society. They truly believe that our culture, is built on that. And so for us to do that well, not just in our immediate family, but with, our community, is what I believe is going to make a difference.
And are you seeing a trajectory the opposite way currently in North America, for example? Are you seeing
Well,
that?
of course, we have a lot of single parents. We have, a lot of people that are choosing not to get married today. Our divorce statistics have actually gone down, but it's because people are choosing not to get married. The cost of fractured family in America is $112 billion a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
That's a lot of taxpayers' money right there.
That's taxpayers' money. So, it's there is, yes, we have, a lot of people came from a dysfunctional family. And yes, they will look for connection in the wrong places. And my call is, let's be the people that are connection in the right places. Let's go back to what it takes for us to walk in a level of love when it looks like a lot of hate, to walk in a level of acceptance when I want to be exclusive. You and I've said this, probably 3 or 4 times. It doesn't mean I agree, but I don't get a chance to speak that into someone unless I actually have a relationship with them. They're not going to listen to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm actually speaking on an online Deborah's thing with a women's thing led by Cindy Jacobs, and there's a number of women from around the world going to be on it. And my topic is overcoming.
Wow.
And That's what I hear you saying. And there is that Bible verse that says, to he who overcomes, like in the churches, we all have these problems. I have this against you. There's, you're doing this, but to he who overcomes, there's always promises with overcoming. And, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, living out an ability to overcome. And what I've noticed all through the Bible, all through life, with every single person, everybody has problems. Nobody is perfect.
Yep.
Some have worse problems than others. Some are choose to do worse things than other people do. But what I'm hearing you say over and over again, not in so many words, is that anybody can overcome no matter what it is. And have you seen that to be true from very broken, terrible situations, overcome and still attain a level of family harmony, even when it's just been destroyed from before? Is that possible? Are you giving us hope for that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now, is that going to take a lot of challenge on the family that loves them well? Yeah. Because broken people have broken things. And, like you said, I think there's layers of restoration that we do, and then we do another, and then we do another. And, hopefully by the time we get to heaven, we're at a different level. But when I look at what that level is and what that goal is, it's Jesus' goal is, did you love well?
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you know, just two
Did you?
commandments remain. Do you love me and do you love one another? And so, and I often say that the second commandment is very much like the first, because God's perfect, relatively easy to love, but that brother of ours or that neighbor of ours or the person next to us, our closest neighbors are not necessarily easy. And if we do that well, that's showing us, how that's a reflection of the first commandment. So, Dan, would you pray for people? We're coming to the end here, but would you pray, or if you sense anything, that you really want to say for somebody that might be listening right now, just add those couple nuggets, pray, and give people even an idea of how to pray. When
Yeah.
we're in trauma, we sometimes don't even know what to do, how to pray.
Right. Right. So I want to say, when I closed my eyes before we got on, I saw something, a really interesting picture. God speaks to me in pictures, and I'm not a farmer, so it was a very weird picture. When hay has been harvested and it's just sitting in piles, it hasn't been bundled yet. It's just sitting in piles. And I said, "What is that, God?" And he said, we're in harvest season, and a lot of it's already been cut, but I need people to come in and gather.
Mhm.
And so I know that there's somebody listening, or some people that are listening or going to listen, that, that's a challenge for you right now. And it may be that you're gathering in those, like you said, Stacey, those small communities, or, in your neighborhood, speaking to your neighbors again, um, that it's ready for you to gather, that you're positioned perfectly right now to gather. And I would just challenge you with that, that there are people that God's going to throw in your path. And I think some of us feel like it's not relevant, but I know that the Lord thinks it's the most relevant. That those will be the crowns, that when we get to heaven, that he's going to go, "Wow, I saw that. I saw that. I saw where you stopped. I saw where you loved. I saw where you gave. I saw where you included." There's a very interesting story of, everyone knows Chris Valentin, and him including on Thanksgiving the relative that smokes that nobody wants to be around, and that's the epitome of it. It's not that we don't love that person, but it's just so different. Can we, like you said, overcome that? Can we get over the small, difficult thing, the speck, to get to the big picture of that's a person that's valuable. And my secure love standing in their face is actually going to help restore them.
Wow. Okay. Pray for us. Pray for us, Diane.
So, Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to speak with Stacey today about the topic of family, your family, the thing that you created, the institution that you created for us to be loved, to understand love, and to release that into the people that we know, the people that we don't even know yet. God, I ask for miracles in families today. I ask that you release your peace into people that have been struggling with what to do and what to say. I ask for your creative ideas, the discernment to know where to reach out, when to reach out, what people to talk to, what people to drop a note to. And I ask for open doors like never before. Like we've called, if I hate to even call the word prodigal, but that child, that adult child that is struggling right now, that needs the answers, that needs the wisdom of their family, I ask them to be turned back. And I ask the hearts of the fathers to be turned toward. I ask that you bless that you give it your favor, that you protect it, and that you guide just hearts and minds in the whole process. And I expect, Lord, to see miracles. I expect to see families restored. I expect to see glorious reunions. And I thank you for Stacey and Wesley, who love families so well that they're willing to take part in this reunion. So, God, we thank you that we can gather. I ask that it be released, Lord. Amen.
Amen. And Diane, you mentioned something earlier. And if anybody, if you have any testimonies, even questions, feel free to put them on the chat in Shiloh. I'm putting this up on the YouTube on the Shiloh Global app. You can download the app at the Play Store, the App Store, Shiloh Global app, and we'll put this program on there. But and you can listen to it again and again, just for keys and nuggets that will help you in your family. But if you have any testimonies or comments, please feel free to put them down, and we'll field them. But you mentioned earlier, Diane, that you have something called the Family Access. What is that?
Oh, we have a website called thefamilycollective.co. So thefamilycollective.co that has all kinds of resources. So a lot of the questions that you were asking, we've answered. There's a lot of resources that we've actually taken from the web. Some teaching, but like actually the ability to interact and ask what the questions that you asked, what have you heard? What are the testimonies? Because a lot of people are concerned, but that's just telling me their hearts are being back turned. And it's a good thing that we're desiring that. So yeah, that's
okay.
out there.
Thefamilycollective.co. You can sign up. You can get all kinds of tools there. You can put questions there, whatever you want. But Diane, I just think you're doing such a critical job in this hour. I think it's so important, because when we don't have a nuclear family or some form of extended family, we go to this groupthink, and then it gets kind of weird and crazy. We become controllable. I think that's the kind of end result. People stop thinking. And so they just for the sake of the group. So anyway, I'm so grateful for you. I got to end this program because it has to be under a certain amount of time, but that was awesome. And hopefully we'll get together again and do it again. Okay. Bless you.
Thank you, Stacey. Bless you. Bye, Wesley.
Bye. Okay. Okay. I believe I stopped the recording.
I think it still says live.